Noggin.
Really, the way Oliver tells stories and what he's telling the stories about, a lot of it are about people cooperating in a rural or a non-industrial background and reusing things.
Well, it's quite obvious what that is all about.
But the heart of Oliver's background was a socialist left-wing background. You can see that that left Labour background is distilled into these little films that he made. What's absolutely stunning about the Clangers is how few words there are in it. So what he's doing, if you think about it, what he's doing mime and he's doing sound. The mime comes from the little woolly clangers and the sound is coming from the Swanee whistle. You had all the time, you see two little clangers, woolly noses going up, looking over there, no sound, and just ooh. What the child is doing is reading those images and reading those peculiar sounds of the Swanee whistle. And that's staggering because you're, in a sense, you're saying to the child, go ahead, go and do that. You know, you're leaving a space for the child to do the interpreting. So it's very active television. He really comes from blokes in garden sheds, fiddling around, making things. What are you doing? I'm making a film in the garden shed. I mean, and you can see it in the film, you can hear it in the films. I mean, it really is small films. I mean, it's handmade. Oliver set himself apart from the kind of mainstream enthusiasm about technology and about space and about bombs that was going on in the late 50s, 60s and into the 70s. You know, he was a member of CND, and you can see at the beginning of the Clangers, he is saying, look, when we look at the Earth, it is beautiful, just as, you know, Apollo and Neil Armstrong and the rest looked back and could see the Earth, that it's beautiful. But at the heart of what Oliver is saying at the beginning there, this is the most troubled and troublesome planet of all. We have war. We are not solving the problems of the world. I never knew when I first met Oliver that his dad was a person I'd read in the sixth form, Raymond Postgate and G.D.H. Cole, The Common People. So at the heart of Oliver's background was a socialist left-wing Labour Party. And I mean, his grandfather was George Lansbury. This was somebody who led one of the most famous revolts from a local council when they fought the cuts, basically, in Poplar. And in fact, quite hard to relate it to the programmes that he made. But actually, when you look at the programmes, it's not that they're socialist propaganda or anything like that, but you can see they're drawing on left-wing Labour traditions. All of children's literature and all of children's films, they're all informed by an idea that there is some ideal place. And this ideal place may be childhood, it may be the time before there was industry, before there was somehow or other the world got corrupted by us adults. And I can imagine there's quite a link between this bohemian heaven in the garden around Dartington with the kind of worlds that Oliver created in his films. If we think of Ivor and we think of Oliver and the left-wing tradition, where did some of this left-wing tradition come from? It came from Wales. That people who worked in Wales, particularly around the pits, they developed a sense of community that really left-wing Labour people said, this is the future. We must look to these people and the ideas that they're developing about how we can cooperate and how we can share. And it's quite interesting that he put that into a little children's film. This was a time when some people thought there was going to be a revolution. There were minor strikes taking place. The Heath government clearly didn't know what to do in the face of all this industrial unrest and so on. And Oliver, as I seem to remember, he did one of the instalments of the Clangers had an outfit who turned up and said that they had to vote for Froglet, I think it was. I've sat and watched Bagpuss with children, and sometimes they've clocked it and liked it. I've also sat with them sometimes, say my present 4-year-old, and he didn't like it. He didn't like Bagpuss's face. He couldn't read it, I don't think, and he didn't like it. And I know that one feeling I had when I was a child and that I didn't like was a form of melancholy. I didn't like poetry that had a sort of unattached melancholy. I just wonder whether sometimes with Bagpuss, some children find the sort of sad edge to it. The true inheritors of Oliver Postgate are probably the Teletubbies, the Fimbles and In the Night Garden, because if you think about them, these are strange woolly creatures living in a world that you're not quite sure where they are. In fact, Oliver thought his interpretation of the Teletubbies was that it was a post-nuclear world, and these were mutated human beings with like aerials stuck out of their head and like kind of movies going on their stomachs. I mean, he thought it was utterly weird, which is quite funny, isn't it, coming from Oliver?